Well, good morning, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. It's January 27th, 2023, 11:01 a.m. on the East Coast, where we live here on Mystery Island down in southern Maryland. And we'd really be happy to have another charrette because every time I see Kathy Sue, and good morning, Kathy, I think of how wonderful it's been to get a big group of people together, and hopefully we can do that again soon, as the weather starts to warm up and options become available. Hey, David's here. Good morning, David. David, your deep dive this morning or yesterday, whenever it was, on the Project Veritas and Eric Prince relationship is really essential. I I do think you've done a great service by putting that together. Thank you. Good morning, Linda and Corky and Laura. So, those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, on Twitter this morning, I was happy to see a long thread by our friend David Cranmer Underdown on that subject of the video that is, kind of taken off all over the internet, so called. But I detect a little bit of artificial um, support for it that exceeds just the normal, um, you know, viral, to use the word, transmission. That's just my opinion. But again, with something as sensational as that, one has to wonder, and it is sensational, but that's the only source. Give me something else. Give me another Pfizer employee. Give me somebody else. An innocent witness was there that can verify that it wasn't all staged. And then now bring in the information that we have concerning prior engagement of Project Veritas by none other than Eric Prince. And I have to say, I think we should be cautious in possibly getting gaslit or possibly getting diverted from, the real search for truth. For instance, if I was like going to try to distract people from seeking the truth behind a plausibly deniable government program, would I not try to pin it on a private corporation and then let that private corporation take all the blame while the stockholders are subtly exiting and they collapse the company? And just like the asbestos verdict, and in I can't remember the name of the company, but was I think it was Monsanto. And what was the company that, anyway? You've seen this many times by now, right? That there's some kind of a program, and it's horrible, and terrible things happen, and then it gets blamed on a corporation, and then the corporation has to, get sued, and they have a class action, which is one of the most pernicious legal entities been invented to protect the the owner class. Class actions don't help the average person. Class actions are there to protect wealth, period. And the amount of paper and the time and the expense you have to send out all these notices to millions of people, come on. That's a way to deprive individuals of their rights and turn it into one of these, manipulable mass things that, oh geez, well, gosh, you didn't get paid. You got 4 cents on the dollar, did you? Oh well, you did better than so and so. It's all a scam, my opinion. I could be wrong, and maybe it's not a scam, but that's my opinion. Hey, Timothy Judd's here. Hey, Timothy, great. Yeah, my wife just probably drove past you. She flew out of Richmond this morning, going out to California for just a short visit for a family event. And I think of you down there in Richmond, and it's not that far, about hour and a half, hour and 45-minute drive. Um, you know, maybe I'll sign up for some violin lessons. Uh, Anyway, it's good to hear from you, and it's interesting, isn't it, that Project Veritas is always there. I looked at him from time to time. I wasn't sure that I could really handle the guy's style, and I wasn't getting a whole lot of information for the time I was putting into it, so I just quit looking at him. It wasn't because I didn't trust him, it's just because I didn't think there was a lot of product there, and but now, boy, he sure did make a big splash, and that's what other part of it is wow, has his contributions gone through the roof now because he's done this? And others, it's very interesting to look at all the other people that are jumping on the bandwagon like right away. Oh yeah, look, we caught him dead to rights. No, we haven't. The guy's been out saying, "Hey, I was just on a date. I was just, talking. I was just talking." People do that, especially if you're in a position of mysterious qualities and you can maybe impress a date by saying something that seems sexy to you at the time. Maybe you've had a cocktail or two, and you know, I mean, I can't see relying on this one tape. I just can't see it. So I'm interested in seeing how it lines up because there's a lot of people that are just willing to just completely go off the deep end and say, yes, this proves it. Pfizer is enhancing and reissuing, you know, reinfecting with worse and worse or different and different agents. Yeah, it sounds really, really horrible. The kind of thing that makes you lose your reason and start going with emotion and start making accusations that maybe you don't have the facts to back up yet. Oh, thank you, Timothy. Yeah, your orchestra looks like it's got some really nice stuff coming up. And I want to take Marcia with me, of course, my wife's drummer. So she's been very, very busy lately. But as she finds, more and more free time now that she's finally retired from her career, she's putting a good bit of time into producing our podcast for us. And we've just worked on a new project together. It's going to be a premiere that we will be broadcasting. It's going to be uh, a kind of a deep dive by me reading and commenting on a very important executive intelligence review article from back in 2010 about the bank called Alpha Bank, which was really a conglomeration of banks in all the important European countries that was put together by Jacob Rothschild and really became the engine that drove us to the 2008 financial crisis. And so it's an opportunity to really get in deep with what manipulation went on. And this alpha group of banks represented 70% of all the banks in the world at that time. What has happened to it since then? Well, it went bankrupt. But they're back, and they're all operating in their countries. ING, the Dutch one with the orange balloons, that was one of them. Santander, I think, is Portuguese. Other ones from each of the major countries in Europe. And they were just smaller banks that were suddenly bought out by the Rothschild interests and then used to pump and dump and make the whole thing into a house of cards that they could pull the rug out from under, to mix metaphors, when it suited them. So anyway, that's coming up soon. Marcia was great in helping me put together some really good graphics, and with editing and all, she's adds a whole lot to the show. So that'll be coming up soon. I'm not sure when I'm going to publish it, but uh, could be real soon. Yeah. Okay. And it is going to be interesting to see if it pans out. I am interested. I'm just not willing to bet the farm on it. Hey, Norman. No, Pfizer would never do anything untoward. You're absolutely right. I don't know why we even think of it. True or false is making people look into it. Excellent point, Willie. Fix it. You are you. That is important, because if you actually are willing to open up the question of is it true or false, then I think we've won, and that's a good thing. What I'm afraid is going to happen, though, is that it's going to get just tarred and feathered with this, oh, that's just a mega Trump people thing. You know, they're just trying to blame everything on Pfizer, when it was really Trump that messed it all up with his bumbling of the pandemic. And it'll all just turn into rhetoric, which I really don't want. Hello, Charles. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she should be gone, but yeah, they can't do that though, without risking even more power to the Speaker of the House, Mr. McCarthy. Hello, it happens. Looking a few steps ahead, they are preparing a case to defend their actions and lies. Well, when you say they, who do you mean? Do you mean Pfizer? It's just the corporate body of Pfizer? Or do you mean the deep state behind this? Or, the Defense Department, NIH, Fauci? Who's going to be defending their actions and lives? And are they all going to be on the same team, or are they going to start falling apart? They'll be going to court. Well, perhaps. Or perhaps somebody's just going to put a national security stamp over the whole thing. That's what our observation has been in the 4 or 5 years I've been watching. And, you know, that working with George Webb for a couple of years, you get to see what they do with the slap and seal. You know, they're not going to let us see the evidence if they can possibly keep it out. And, that's happened time and time again in these court cases that we follow. Yeah, Malone is an interesting case, isn't he? I'm really fascinated with Mark's coverage, Mark Kulak at Housatonic Live's coverage. Uh, it happens that, and I'm going to start reading the comments because I realize perhaps some people don't see them on the screen. It happens says Malone, Callahan, Fauci, NIH, all of them. Yeah, it's so fascinating when you start seeing the fault lines between them. And Malone is certainly taking himself away from the pack and making some strong accusations. But his story is so kooky, you know, that he was one of the first victims of this, you know, epidemic, pandemic thingy. And, he got it at the symposium in Boston to study the the viruses. And then he may have been a super spreader. But then what did he treat himself with? I don't think it was remdesivir. So it's so curious that we could finally get all the facts out if we can just all work together. So it was my comment on Twitter this morning, and I noticed so now there's a great resurgence in tying Bill Barr to Donald Trump. Like that Bill Barr was doing all this stuff to cover up for Donald Trump. And that's the liberal, apparently a very widely held position, idea that, yeah, William Barr is a cover up guy for Donald Trump. And that's why Mueller couldn't complete his thing because Barr was running interference for Trump. And I think that's a an interesting way to put things together, but there's a lot of holes in that theory. And I think, we could just sit down calmly, you know, put all this stuff out on the table and sort it out. Because I think that William Barr and Robert S. Mueller III were a lot tighter than either of them ever was with Donald Trump. But I could be wrong. So let's find out. Let's have some depositions. All of a sudden, the truth does not mind being questioned. A lie doesn't like being challenged. I like that. It's true. Razvedka. Just the pharmacy types who work with defense. Well, I guess that means, that the people like Rick Bright and the ones in BARDA and DTRA that are cognizant of what they've been doing. And that makes sense to me. Charles Held says, Malone, the humble carpenter. Well, he looks more like the Dos Equis beer guy to me. But I guess he's got a certain appeal. Hello, CAG. Welcome. I haven't seen you before. I'm glad you're here. And as people drop dead, we all see the evidence. Now, here's another one. I mean, you have to understand, I'm probably one of the most skeptical people around. And my background, I was a trial lawyer for over 30 years. And so I have a certain experience at sussing out the truth. And I need more on the causation of these sudden deaths, especially the athletes. I need more. And here's what really troubles me. These sudden deaths are happening on television now. They're happening in the Olympics. They're happening in venues that are being watched on media by millions and even billions of people. And nobody's explaining medically what's going on here. There's a lot of speculation, but nobody's explaining it. We get spun with all this stuff about, there's myocarditis and then there's myocarditis. And then, maybe it was the eggs, or maybe, that's the latest one. It was probably the eggs. You ate too many eggs. I I pointed this out to say we're still being bamboozled. We are still under the blanket of their plausible deniability schemes. And so, just like with the Project Veritas video, I'm not ready to accept the idea that these people are dropping dead because of COVID or because of the vaccines. I'm just not ready. I'm not. And I'm going to tell you another reason that I'm not ready. Because one of the first things that I learned when I started studying this was about the heart attack gun. And if you wanted to convince a whole lot of people that COVID was causing heart attacks or that a vaccine was causing heart attacks, would you not sit on the sidelines with your heart attack gun and zap some athletes on national television and then start the rumor and let the people that have a forum, a platform, start shouting, hey, hey, those sudden deaths, those sudden heart attacks, that myocarditis, that came definitely, no doubt about it, from either the disease or the cure, the virus or the vaccine. Well, we don't know that, but we do know they have heart attack guns. We were talking about that with Carol M. and Corky the other night, where it's the pulsed energy. It is resonance. It is waves. As Tesla said, if you want to study the future of energy, study waves. And so if you bombard somebody's heart with some bad frequency or combination thereof, you can apparently, and I don't know this, I'm not a doctor, but apparently what they can do is they can cause you to have a heart attack. That's what they said in the church committee in 1975 or 6 or so. So I believe them. That's a solid technology they can do this with. So is this another technique of plausible deniability to spin us into blaming COVID for what may be something entirely different, such as 5G, 6G, 40G, whatever they're going to be pumping at us? I know people are dropping dead. I know it is evidence of some really bad wrongdoing. I just want to know exactly what it is, and I want this heart attack gun theory to be sorted out by some experts because I haven't heard anything better yet. Zagonostra says, "Why don't they use them in Ukraine? The heart attack guns." Well, I think 155 millimeter cannons do a lot more damage. Hello, Timothy again. Edward Dowd has put together some good data. Also seeing sudden deaths and injuries in my social media feeds. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. Like I say, I'm just skeptical. And I think I've earned the right to be skeptical. Actually, you don't have to earn it. It's probably just a good thing to acquire without having to pay too high a price. And Corky Ether is back. Tickling it can be bad or beneficial. Okay. I think you're tickling my ether, Corky, and it feels good. All right, guys, let's have a little laugh together. Let's tickle each other's ether. What do you think? So I'm not an expert on 5G. I've had Lena Pooh on my show a couple of times, and I respect the people that are digging into it, but I haven't become convinced yet of where where we should be going with it. What do we do with this information? Once again, how much of it is real and how much of it is gaslighting to cover to excuse me, gaslighting to cover up a real nefarious danger that might be more important for us to look at. I don't know. I, you want me to speculate? I look at HARP and I look at the aurora and I look at the stimulation of all of those electrons that are floating around up there. And I am sure that people are sitting around thinking, how do we use all that energy? It's free energy. Can't we just tap it and have our own private s- source of power from, uh, transmitting that power from the the electromagnetic field around the Earth directly into a generator or something that we can use here on the surface. People got to be working on that. And to draw that much power down through the atmosphere is probably harmful to the atmosphere and the biosphere generally. And the use of waves to transmit energy, well, that's what I think we're talking about here. If we're going to create waves with a laser or radar or something on a satellite and send them down to Earth, you know, for instance, if we decided, hey, we have too many forests here in California, let's get rid of some of them, and say, oh, okay, zap, and the laser energy comes down from on high and starts making some really interesting fires. Yeah, maybe we could think of a way to clear stuff off of the land that we want to dig. Maybe we could get people to move away from that secret oil that's under their house and maybe that gold field that they don't know about. We could just get rid of the people off the top and then we can get back to what we do best, exploiting resources. Patacorn, where did Trump's uncle put all of Tesla's stuff? Well, what do you think? Let's ask Corky. Corky, what do you think? Where did Trump's uncle put all of Tesla's stuff? Audrey Lynn Colton Smith, have the best day ever. You're amazing, McDuff and company. You guys are great. And thanks for the wind beneath my wings. Our wings. We fly together, the ospreys. Yep, that's who we are. Eek, 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 eek. And protecting the nest. That's our ladies that come to us once a month to talk about their view, their perspective on the crazy life we're living through. And Corky has the answer. The uncle dismissed it after 2 days. Meaning Fred, I guess, Fred Trump, is that right? And the material is hidden now. Sure. Yeah. Ms. Hunt says, John, you must listen to Modern War Institute YouTube channel, West Point Lectures by Dr. Giordano. I'm wondering, is that Dr. Giordano the one that was talking about um, biowarfare on a seminar that JJ Couey was featured on one of his shows about 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Anyway, no, well, that's nice, but I would need to know exactly what I would learn there. I'm not somebody that's just going to jump in and watch something because somebody else says to watch it. If there's something in particular that you say, I think I really would benefit from, like an exposition of the Polish Empire or something that I don't know much about, or perhaps, some facts that you see on that channel that I'm probably not aware of, then let me know. But just try to be specific, and I appreciate it because I can't just look at everything. An embarrassment of riches when it comes to sources here, and I do appreciate everyone's ideas. Tesla science never stopped. Where did it happen? Was it MIT, Corky, Stanford? I'm really starting to get interested in it. And Charles says Otto Skorzeny. Okay, yeah. I wonder if he is somehow doing involved in it, running security or transferring things from here to there, or perhaps doing some even darker deeds. George Herbert Walker spent his life stealing Tesla's ideas, says Leslie. And George Herbert Walker is the father of I, who is he? The maternal grandmother, the maternal grandfather of George H.W. Bush. I'm not sure. I can't. It seems like that's too far away. He would have been dead by the time Tesla's ideas were out, if I'm understanding the right reference there. Okay, that's him. Psych neurobiology. All right. Well, I'm just going to tell you, Miss Hunt, I don't buy him. I think he's a salesman. I think he's talking to get grants and sell products, and I just don't buy his act. Norman Smith. Folks, check out Norman's music on his YouTube channel, Norman Smith on YouTube. Lovely stuff, very original, and all produced by himself. I saw some of Tesla's stuff at the Edison Ford Winter Estate in Fort Myers, Florida. Okay. Right, neurocognitive warfare. Yeah, I would urge you to go to Twitch to Gigaome Biological and look at his. I'm not sure how to tell you which show it was, but it was a show about 2 weeks ago, and he really dug into this Giordano guy and took a lot of it apart, and I think he did a good job. So that's where I come down on it. It's another one of the themes of our week, I guess. And Corky's points it out: weapon or tool. And we've talked about this in terms of the Belt and Road with Mark Kulak at Housatonic Live. And I think this is and David Kramer Underdown would make the same point. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, we don't know, because it could be a tool for goodness, or it could be a weapon to enslave us. And I don't know which it is. Nobody knows, because our government is obscure. We don't know whose side is our government on. It doesn't seem to be on our side anymore. And that's why, my other theme that I keep coming back to is that the assassination of John F. Kennedy, November 22nd, 1963, was a coup d'etat in which the legitimate government of the United States was subverted, and the coup plotters have been running the government ever since, behind the scene, presenting a bunch of school plays, a bunch of actors, and phony debates and distractions to keep us from recognizing that, there's something rotten in Denmark, okay? It's rotten. It stinks. It smells. It's rotten. If we don't undo that coup, then we are dead. And I know there's been coups before that, and I'm not saying there weren't. And you might say, well, the government before Kennedy was killed wasn't legitimate either. Well, okay, you can have that. You sit on your ivy pedestal and judge. But what good does that do to us, for us? Can we not get back to the idea that at least in those previous coups, nobody prosecuted them. It hadn't been proven, and the ideals of the country still stand because we. That's what I worry about is if everybody says, well, this government was already taken down in 1898 or 1865 or there's a number of other places, the assassination of Garfield, um, so many opportunities for us to go back and just say, well, you know what, that was also a change of government. Well, maybe it was, but nevertheless, the American people accepted it, lived with it for decades, and up until 63, people did believe that we all lived in the same country and we had a constitution and we had a Supreme Court that was the supreme law of the land, and that our values are ensconced in our founding documents, including the Declaration of Independence, and we are all working for the good. So that is what I'm saying ended on November 22nd, 1963, and we just have been so confused and distracted, and their plausible deniability has been very, very effective. Well, they use our money to fix it, to figure out how to psych us out, and got a lot of our money. Indeed, Leslie, the truth is still the truth. Let's always keep that in mind. Well, good luck, Jerome. Sorry to hear you need some surgery. My mother developed some kind of nodule on her vocal cord. She had a beautiful voice, but after she got that, it was always just a little bit of a gravelly in it, and it's just happens. We get old. Of course, if they succeed in finding the secret of life, the ultimate Lego part, and how to manipulate them and how to make us live forever, then I'll be wrong. But in terms of what's really the future, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think I'm going to last um, forever, and probably going to expire somewhere around the normal life expectancy of white American male people. But I'm healthy. I feel good. So, when you get retired, then you have to start figuring out, well, how long am I going to live? Because I've only got so much money. So how much can I spend between now and then? I say, well, if I'm going to live to 100, then I've got to live really cheap. So maybe I'll back off. Maybe I'll just live to 90. And they say, yeah, it's still kind of cheap. Yeah, well, I'm 70 now. Maybe let's just go for 10 years. Then I could be a little more comfortable. And so then 10 years rolls by and I'm 80 and I'm broke. I say, hello, all my good friends out there in McDuff land, send money. Zaganoster, you're absolutely right. William Pepper, who I think is still living, and I would love to talk to him, but his work on the MLK, and also Doug Valentine was associated with William Pepper. So hopefully Doug can tell us more. But the story is there. It certainly was not James Earl Ray, and it certainly was some type of a conspiracy. And I certainly am very suspicious of Jesse Jackson's role. I have not read all of William Pepper's product. I didn't study that trial, but I do accept the civil outcome that yes, the government was involved. And again, nobody blinked. Exactly what you say. Why? Because they don't want you to think about it. They don't want you to realize, that the most famous, greatest civil rights leader in history, yeah, Murder Incorporated, Division 5, Mafia, you name it. People that think these things don't happen are just living in a dream world and, you know, easily misled because you don't think past the surface of what the news report says. And we can't survive as a country as if you just accept everything that's told you. We can't. Our mother gives us a body, feeds us, takes it back. Yeah, yeah. Mother Earth. I like that. But I like the idea of consciousness being something outside of our physical existence, and of course that's a big theme of the Schiller Institute and all of our good friends there that uh, with Leibniz and uh, always talking about the higher nature of man, the spiritual side, uh, the part that God wants us to develop and become more and more spiritually sound. And I like the idea of a conscious Mother Earth. Certainly, that goddess of Mother Earth is very important to ancient peoples and very important to people that are of the blood and soil type right now. That is Isis. Isis is the Mother Earth goddess, and the other Earth goddesses of various cultures serve that same purpose. It's a personification of the land and the crop cycle. Right now we're going through the transition into spring, and all of that is overseen by the earth goddess, the Gaia. But I don't like them to be impersonal, and I don't like to have a God that I can't talk to. So I like the idea of being able to consider that great consciousness that Corky talks about as something I can talk to. Okay, Corky Goss. Consciousness is a non-material witness mark from source. Welcome. Hey, hey. I am so pretentious. Sheldrake is the sun conscious YouTube. I don't know that reference, but non-material witness mark from source. Okay. Anything to me is better than nothing, and I don't like the idea of nothingness and this bare existentialism that really leads to in one. There was a question on Jeopardy last night. I don't know if you guys watch Jeopardy or still do, but my wife likes to watch it, and I watch it often with her. And one of the questions was, what is the philosophy that was begun by, who was it, Heidegger they credited with it? I think it was Heidegger that emphasizes the individual will and doing, you know, developing your own individuality. And the answer was uh, existentialism. So I never really thought of it before, but existentialism really is another form of Nietzsche. It's kind of an extension of the idea that there is no God, And that leads you right into our friends at, Chatham House with Alastair Crowley and, the basically satanic Nazi view of the world of do whatever you want to. You are basically God in your world. So do as you want. It's a terrible way to look at life. It's un-American because America was founded on spiritual principles as well as on legal documents. There's no question about it. None of those people were real atheists. Let's see. Okay, Professor Yamamoto, good morning, and it's nice to have you back with me after only 12 hours. Um, Existentialism, absolutely right. And I had to read a bunch of that crap when I was in college because I majored in government, but I was more interested in the philosophy side of government than I was of the statistical analysis stuff that's called political science. So my courses that I took, and I had a wonderful professor, Roger W. Smith, who I'll never forget. He was terrific. We went through Heidegger, we went through Sartre, we went through oh, I can't remember the Dutch guy's name. Anyway, that was 50 years ago. But it didn't make any sense to me then, and it doesn't make any sense to me now. Well, look at life as in the most minimal way as possible. Just think of it. Okay, you're here, you have a little bit of time, and then you die, and it's over. Game over. Maybe people who lived through World War II can look at it that way because of the death that happened all around them during their lives and the sadness and the despair that drives you to think that way. But I don't think humanity is limited to that small a vision of what life is really about. I don't think so. Consciousness keeps increasing. Never knew Spinoza. Boy, now you got me. I forgot. Spinoza was a Spanish Jew, but I don't remember what he stood for. Been a little while since I was in college. Oh, Kierkegaard. Yeah, that's right. Danish, not Dutch. Kierkegaard. Thank you, Brightmore. See how smart this group is. We might not individually know a lot, but a group together like this, we hard to stump us, I think. Corky, the sun is shining into my alchemical kitchen for the first time in 2 weeks. Yay. We got some sunshine here on the island too this morning. It's nice. Still a little chilly. Zaganastra says Spinoza, monad, and pantism. Okay, I'm sorry, but I still didn't get it yet. Tractus Logico Philosophus, adds Leslie McKenzie. And Jerome, who should know, says Spinoza lived in Holland. Okay. Ms. Hunt, now you're bringing up Yeats. Gosh, you're talking about William Butler Yeats, and the Yeats family generally, and William Butler Yeats. These are fascinating. Um, as a Irish musician ever since the '70s, myself, I've been aware of the poetry. I've gone to the National Museum in Dublin and seen the paintings by the senior Yeats and my um, Yeats's brother, whose watercolors I have a number of them here in the house, and also great with acrylics in oil. Um, can't remember his name, but getting back to the philosophy side of Yeats, I think he's really is a Fabian. And I hate to say that because I love his lyricism and I love the visions that he gives us of an ancient Celtic race that was noble and had all of this, all these interesting qualities. And I love to believe in that as a kind of an iconic Celticism that Yeats was fashioning. But I also visited Yeats's castle, which is in County Galway, um, near Cool Park, and Yates's castle is an old castle that he bought. And when you're in there, there's a display of um, all the graphics and all the poetry and all the beautiful printing that was done uh, in the teens and 20s to support this kind of revival of the ancient Celtic heroes and ancient Celtic lore, Cuchulainn and all of that, um, the Didanon, the basis of a lot of Irish folklore and mythology, to bring all that into the public consciousness to kind of create a race consciousness of Irishness, or to recreate or to re-emphasize a race consciousness of Irishness, which I think has a lot in parallel with what they were doing in Europe with Mazzini and the young Europe and young Italy, young this and young that movements, to organize people around a nationalism theme, but then have that organization available to be used for the hidden purposes of the hidden hand. And that is where I think the Fabians are really a driving influence on William Butler Yeats and his philosophy and his poetry and what he did in his life, um, with Maud Gunn. Fascinating, though. And another one from Miss Hunt. Aubrey Beardsley did gold leaf prints for many of Dowson's books. I don't know Dowson's books, but Beardsley, man, he's another one of those interesting characters. If you look at his, I guess you would still call them pornographic pen and inks with some very pubescent characters walking around. Um, that was considered pornography. I don't know if it still is or not. But Beardsley, yeah, another fascinating character. Thank you for reminding me about him. Let's see who else. Don't want to go back to the same people. Professor Hamamoto Yates was a Blavatskian, close to Crowley and OTO. I need to read that. I don't, in my studies, I haven't run into that, but I haven't dug in that direction. One of the things that I'm going to do then after the show, I'm going to go and do a compound search with William Butler Yeats and Helena Blavatsky and see what comes up, and then add Crowley in, because that would probably reinforce my general feeling that I was expressing, now in that, yeah, that if you go from Fabians to Blavatsky and Crowley, that's not very far. It's kind of like there's a legitimate movement that looks like philosophy, and then there's the darker one that's kind of secret and run by the secret services and societies, and that's associated with Crowley and the OTO. Okay, interesting, and food for research, food for thought. I enjoy, you know, so much of my life I didn't have a clue what was going on, and now we have this internet, and we have all of these great people all around the world that are sharing information, and it is great. It's fun. So we can rejoice that we do have this ability, and hopefully, by exercising our freedom, we can overcome this apparent desire to enslave us. All right. I love our jumping around all these subjects, quote, consciously. Yes, yeah, it's like the sparks are flying, right? Mercury, the messenger god, flies at the speed of light between our brains and, expresses itself digitally on the computer, but maybe the real connection is in the ether. Well, it's been a good week for me here on McDuff Lives. A lot of progress. Make sure and check out BitChute Uncensored. It's my channel on BitChute where all of my shows for the past 2.5 years are now collected. And if you go up to the upper right and tap on my photograph, that opens up a list of options where you'll find playlists. You can't see the playlist on the jump page. You have to go um, tap the little picture and then go down and click playlists. And then there's like 16 playlists there, a number of book readings and collections of interviews with people like Garland Nixon um, and George Webb and a lot of other of material that you might not be able to find anywhere else. As I migrate away from YouTube, BitChute is becoming my primary archive. I am going to be live on Rumble in the next few days. I'm looking forward to that very much. I did put one short video up on Rumble just so I would have a channel started, and I need some followers over there. So if you don't mind, go to Rumble and find McDuff Lives and punch the follow button because I need to have, I think, 100 followers before I can go live. Okay. Well, everybody, more will be revealed. Thanks again for all of your help and assistance, and have a great weekend.